So what happens is people usually go to the cloud vendor and ask for a good discount. And they promise you things like they promise you 72% discount on your commitment if you commit for 3 years. So this is usually happens when people panic and they go into rush buying. So how true is really the 72% they promised for? Well, if it's AWS or Azure, this claim is true. Fact is, you can just check it now, 72, 73% you will save in either one of these clouds. In fact, Google offer the same thing. And they tell you exactly where and for how long. So 36 months being committed in Azure will give you a 72% discount, same in AWS. But reality is what they're giving you is they're giving you this kind of a voucher. They tell you half price if you buy this drink. That's what the cloud vendor tells you, AWS, Azure, or whatever it is. But what they do not tell you in reality is what they're offering you is a catalog of discounts. And that means if I go to the same bar and I get the same drink for Sunday, Monday, all the way through Saturday, I'll get half price. But you really have to buy every day the drink in order to get 50% discount. So here's my question. What if you end up using only 2 of the vouchers from the 7 that you got in your catalog? Are you really saving 50%? Well, just the simple math, it's not going to work out. If you paid regular price, you might pay $1 per drink. You would have paid $2. If you had the voucher for 3.5, you already made losses. So does that relate really one-to-one to cloud services? Of course. So here's an example. Can you really make losses in ROIs despite 72% discount? Yes, that's a real calculation, depending on the 72 discount that we spoke about. It has to be paid upfront, 3 years. And you will have a billing month of $168 for that commitment. You're saving the hourly rate is $0.2. If you run the same instance on demand, but you have shut it down throughout the week and you just run it for regular 40 weeks hour that you might need it for, your hourly rate is much higher. Again, it's 72% more expensive, but the monthly bill turned out to be 13% cheaper. So yes, it's proven that sometimes on demand can be cheaper than RIs in that case. So obviously, basically, there are many traps that you can fall into buying commitments, and this is what we want to avoid throughout the next few minutes. So how not to fall into the commitment trap, and that's what I would like to discuss with you. So number one, I touched on it briefly, but I would like to speak about it now more in depth, measuring it. How do you measure your actual savings and to see if it will be valuable to buy a commitment or not? And I like this expression, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. It's a simple fact. If people buy commitments and they cannot measure that they really materialize those savings, then they have been fooling themselves. They did not improve anything. They just bought what the commercial told them. So the industry standard tells you what we all know. If you do any kind of discussions about commitments, they tell you, well, your utilization is high, your coverage is high, then you're good. That's a fact. Is that really the case? So let me just rephrase quickly, what is actual coverage and utilization, just to be on the same line. So if I try to use the same analogy for drinks. If you get the voucher for your favorite bar and they tell you you get 4 drinks, and if you went to that bar and you bought 4 drinks, then you're covered, right? That's 100% coverage. That's basically what coverage is. If you bought on the other side 5 drinks, you have only 80% coverage. You just had 4 out of 5 being paid for with that discount. And that's what coverage is. What about utilization? Well, the same analogy. You got 4 drinks for free or half price. If you went to the bar and you actually got 5 of them, you're still, sorry, that's utilization, that's the wrong one. Your utilization would have been still 100%. Why is that the case? Because I got 4 out of 4. I still got all what I could use in that voucher. In the same case, if I just bought 1 bottle, you actually wasted the full potential of having 4 bottles for half price. So your utilization in that case was just 25%. So why am I saying that? Because if people use coverage as an indicator for high rate savings, that's not always the case. Think about your coverage. If you had the first example in the same environment, you have 4 running, let's say EC2 instances. You had the coverage 100% in the first case, but you had more basically more reservations than needed, you would have paid more money rather than having just 75% coverage. So coverage is not the best indicator for having savings. Likewise, utilization. If you have utilization with 100%, but less coverage in that case, it will be more expensive than 80% utilization with higher coverage. And that means, again, utilization as itself is not a full indication of high savings. And this is just simple formulas that I presented here. So obviously, the dashboard and what it tells you about how much you've been saving in terms of utilization and coverage is not leading you to anywhere good. It's just basic, simple metrics, but they're not telling you that you really saved. So does that mean use your brain? Well, in the simple case, I would say, yeah, but you know what? Let me raise the coverage and the utilization, and this will be a very good formula. And that would be the case, of course, if you are running all the time, 24/7, your instances or whatever you're using. But if that's the case, then I tell you, my friend, your problem is not rates. Your problem is you're using the cloud itself the wrong way. You should think about elasticity. You should think about switching off. And in that case, it will mess up anyway this formula that we spoke about. Why? Because now we have, for every time you switch off your machines with elasticity, you will have different utilization. That means now the coverage and utilization formula have been messed up. So which line should you pick? Should you still cover 100%? Will that yield the highest saving? Should you cover 75%, 60%? Well, it turned out there is a simpler way of doing it. And for this, I would like to go back again to the same analogy of making drinks. If you would go to the supermarket and they get 2 offers, buy 3 bottles, you get 2 free, or buy 2 bottles, get 1 free, which one do you think would be the higher saving for you? Can you decide on the spot? Can you just take a moment to think about it? Well, it turned out there's a simple mathematical equation, and this is what ESR, effective saving rate, is. Effective saving rate is a formula which is documented well in the FinOps Foundation. ProsperOps is another product. They have a similar formula, and I just find it really simple. It's basically calculate what you would have spent, including the discounts that you got. So calculate everything that you would pay and materialize after you have got the discount, divided by the equivalent on demand. And in that case, if you would have had, again, the same example with 5 drinks, I would get 5 drinks for the price of 3. That's 3 over 5. That's 40% effective saving rate. If I would get 3 drinks for the price of 2, that's 2 over 3. That's a 33% effective saving rate. So 40% is definitely better. Why did I bother you with this? Because the same formula works when you want to accurately calculate what you're saving. And that brings me to the same topic what I spoke about earlier. You could be utilizing just simple on-demand sometimes. You could be utilizing different kinds of discounts that you get, not just reservations and saving plans, and still calculate what would be with or without it. What if I have only 30 hours of on-demand versus 168 on-demand versus 576? And this is really a calculation I try to do in reality to see the output. And if we calculate in each case, like in the first case, if we take the 30 hours and calculate how much is it per week, plus everything on rest on demand, divided by everything that I would have gotten if I would have just purely used on demand, how much would it have been? And it turned out that this high coverage yield to -1 saving rate, that means you're actually running losses in this case. Calculating the same for all the 3 ones that we've seen, we realized that different coverages might lead to different ESRs, and the one in the middle was the highest in this case. So why do I want to tell you? Because now you can go and spot them in a simple graph and see what would be the highest savings. Am I getting it through on-demand mixture with different saving rates that I would get through different combinations of saving plans and RIs and on-demand and switch off? Yes, maybe. If you could plot this out, you will find the highest possibility to make your savings. And this should be the way to see what is the best strategy to move forward. So I spoke briefly now about how to measure it. Let's just talk about planning it, because that's another fact that I see often. If you see this simple picture that also represents a company where they have different kinds of things running on their cloud. And obviously this pink sheep, what I called here, was not fitting to your commitment. So it's messing things up. So why is that the case? Because simply people sometimes do not govern before they start committing. And by governance is try to eliminate anything that you don't use regularly. So upfront, put your planning to have a way of choosing the same kind of instances and compute power that you need in an aligned way, because it will help you to save more in rates if you have similar patterns. It will help you to build a sort of plan. If you have random things running, then it will be more and more difficult to plan that. So if we have this, we can now finally isolate the similar ones on the side, and the ones we have irregularly, put it on the other side, and just ignore it. Another thing with planning is think about same patterns, but think about exchanging RIs, or think about if I can buy the same family, then it will be used in different ways. And this convertible RIs would fit well. So again, think always in advance, plan it in advance before you commit on what kind of usage you should have. Moving to the same thing, I will take the same pattern that my colleague spoke about earlier. When it comes to ramping up things, ramp up slowly. Don't buy big commitments. Buy really tiny commitments and add up to it on time to have more and more smaller commitments rather than big ones. And that's what we know again as laddering. He spoke about it earlier. And if you gradually and slowly add up, you'll make sure that you do not exceed the demand of what you need in terms of commitments, and thus have higher savings. So planning includes also a lot more. So where do you want to buy your commitments is another question. Should I buy it in a pair account? Should I buy it in the linked account? When should I buy it? Buy it too early and you're making losses. Buy it too late and you make losses either. So it's very essential to think about when should I buy it? What should I buy? Again, it was a good question that was raised earlier. Should I just buy RIs? Should I have a combination of RIs and saving plans? Should I have convertible ones? And the question is always to have a basket of different things. It would be the best option going forward. And last but not least, how much to buy. And for that, you need, again, a very good metric that helps you to choose how much you should buy. And in that case, we would say ESR is a very good metric for that moving forward. So now we spoke about 2 points: measure it, plan it, finally automate it. And that is, again, where we started the conversation earlier. And I think there are plenty of things that we've seen already what needs automation. If it's choosing ESRs, if you need an automation to have a heat map of what kind of resources I should use more regularly and govern it, you should need some sort of automations when it comes to laddering. These things cannot simply be done with a human calculation and having someone doing it in an Excel file. It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. It's really not going to be efficient. Try to choose automations whenever possible. So what I find really surprising that often people spend lots of money on tools that help you to optimize usage. But often what they forget is you can actually make more savings on rates than usage. So why don't you invest a little bit more in getting the right solution to optimize your rates and in an automated fashion that will help you also to grow faster. That being said, again, consider the platforms and solutions that you have. We spoke about different solutions even today, and it would be wise to think about the landscape of what is out there and how to use your best options moving for automations and buying commitments. So let me summarize. Let me wrap it up quickly. So how not to fall into the commitment trap: measure it properly using ESR, plan it well before you buy it, and finally automate it whenever possible. And if that's the case, you will make sure that you do not fall into this trap. My name is Oliver. I am a professional certified FinOps certified professional, sorry. I'm also a trainer and I work in PwC Switzerland. Here's my details. I also blog a lot about FinOps. It's Recloud FinOps, or recfo.blog. That's my blog. Please visit it, subscribe to it if you're not already. And that being said, I'm very happy to take any questions. If you have any further questions about commitments and how to help you with, I'm more than happy. I'm there in the community very often. Very happy to hear from you and to exchange with you when possible. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it was a great presentation, Oliver. So hope that everyone that was joining will see it on the recording as well. I love your style of the presentation. So everyone that joined and everyone that registered will get the link to the slides, so everyone can take a look at that. And I think a lot of insights were were shared on that. I also believe that it's a very tricky matter, like commitments in general and the coverage and how you measure the success of this program, since there is a tricky little things and a lot of money is in place to be able to make it correctly. So Nilofar, I want to get your insights about what was said by Oliver, especially I think the topic of utilization, coverage, and elasticity. I know you are very into the elasticity concept, so please share with us what do you think about this.
Yeah, it's all brilliant. Thank you, Oliver. It's really good content, really good insights. Yeah, one thing I would say that probably I would start measuring how much I need before I start any commitment or before I understand what sort of discount I want to go for. So to answer your question that which discount is better, right? That whether buy three and get two free or buy two and get one free. So it depends. If I need 5 bottles, I would go for buy three and get two free. So I would probably first go for defining what I need and then work it out from there to see what is the best discount possible for our requirement, right? And the other thing I would add is the ESR formula. If we are not considering elasticity, if we are not considering the other discounts we get from vendors and all, then are we measuring it right? Because there are some vendors who actually give discounts outside of the commitment rate. So you might get some 30% discount on your commitment, but you're already getting like 20% on your PPA, on your EDPs, on your MCAs, stuff like that. So if you consider that add elasticity, then is ESR actually the right metric to monitor? That sort of questions I would have. Again, that depends. We'll have to actually work on the numbers and stuff to get the right answer. But I published something around this, and in fact, this afternoon I published something around elasticity to measure that. Okay, what's the best way to measure your productivity in cloud? So I would rather consider all that rather than using ESR as a sole metric.
Yeah, and I think that's because it gets complex, and you, depending on the reference and the let's call it the metric that you refer to, you seem successful or you don't, and you need to make you need to be aware that you are getting the most out of cloud, and you need to evolve the metrics and the references that you use to be able to be successful, right? And I think one of the topics, it's what Oliver said about automation, and it was previously shared, and I think the automation part in commitments is crucial for making, especially for large scales companies. Like for small ones, maybe you can make some adjustments, and I have even seen like scripts that are crazy to calculate the reservation and all the commitment stuff. But the automation, and especially I've seen also the usage of the of ML, of machine learning, for forecasting usage and being able to estimate what the commitment will be for following years. Because after all, we need to see that, and sometimes you see that the changes in the demand and the changes in the, maybe applying FinOps and reducing the consumption because you are making it more efficient, then it could probably affect your commitment strategy. So it's something that you also need to be taken into account. I don't know, Oliver, if you have seen like the usage of ML in this topic, or how do you see like the changes and the forecasting stuff of commitment is, I think, one of the most difficult topics.
Yeah. So yes, I've really seen tons of automations in different kinds of platforms that they use for FinOps, and honestly, sometimes it's really overrated. So still, especially when it comes to forecasting, I mean, unless you put business demands, you cannot really tell what will be forecasted, right? It's never going to be something that you can bite on. ML and AI and all of this would give you really nice estimations if nothing changed, but as soon as you have different business demands coming up, then everything bursts. But I'm thinking more about automations also, especially in terms of commitments, because again, these simple things that we spoke about today, you cannot really, even governing what you use on your cloud environments, like just choosing what to use and to to put some rules to enforce that people do not use random things. For example, that's one way where automations is really essential. Other things like just calculating how much I should buy. I think, yes, intelligence will help a lot in this, especially if you have some ML and AI in it. It will do help you because they see patterns as well in your usage. But as well, when it comes to buying it, especially for laddering, I don't see a way around buying laddering commitments in a click base. It's not going to work. You need automations for that. There is no way around it. Automations is the only possibility to ladder commitments. The reason is because you buy millions of them and it's very small steps, incremental steps. So how do you want to do this? Buying it with manual way, again, it doesn't function. So this is where automations will be essential, and it will use the intelligence that people built into it, if it's machine learning, if it's AI, and it will help you in that case. That's what's the whole point behind it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if you, Nilofar, have some insights on the automation or the ML part. I think because the first time I saw the ML applied to it, I was like, yeah, this actually makes sense for forecasting, because it's one of the better topics that the ML works for, but it's still a risk to let it to the ML to decide, right?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Would you let AI govern your wallet, right? I mean, that's sort of the thing. So are we too early on this, or are we being too excited about automation? I mean, automate it, but take your time. I mean, you don't have to rush it, because I don't know, how do you incorporate customer churn? How do you incorporate new business coming in, stuff like that? You still need some sort of human factor, rather than automating everything. I would love it personally, but I don't think we are that mature yet, or I don't think there's like a tool or a way to automate it that would solve all our problem. I guess it's just finding that right balance, and I'm a bit cautious on that side. That's again that's my way of working.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be cautious, and especially because you are dealing with a lot of budget and a lot of part of the cost, and it's it's, for me, it's super interesting, the commitment topics, because I always see that it's crucial. It's one of the most important things, especially for large scale clients or customers, organizations, that you need to master it as soon as possible, because let's say the considerable expense, even though you make FinOps and you make cost optimization and you'll be able to reduce, if you want to become more efficient, you'll still want to spend a lot in your IT, and especially on cloud. So you still need to manage commitment, because that's not going to, let's say, get away of your topic. So I think it's something that, especially large scales organizations need to master, and people that are lower scale should start learning through, because if you probably move to or your company grows, you need to be able to control it. Or if you change your job and you go to a bigger organization, you probably need to handle that. So I think we are way over the hour, but it's always good to be way over the hour in these webinars. I think it was very interesting, and I hope people got a lot of insights. And so if anyone has any questions, now is the time, because it's going to be the last minutes of the webinar. So anyone has any questions related to commitments. So thanks for that. And yeah, Nilofar and Oliver and Anna had to go earlier, but because of a flight. But it was a pleasure to have you both on the call, and I think it was super insightful. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much for hosting us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.